You want to turn to the White House shakeup right now. President Trump has fired Attorney General Jeff Sessions immediately following the midterm elections, as we expected, replacing him with Sessions' Chief of Staff, Matthew Whitaker. A permanent replacement is expected to be nominated at a later date. Joining us now is former Whitewater independent counsel, former federal prosecutor, and Thompson & Knight partner, Robert Ray. Robert, good to see you. Thanks very much for joining us.
Good morning.
Your reaction to this, and what does it mean for the future of the Robert Mueller probe?
Well, I think as you predicted correctly, this was no surprise. This was in the works. I think we knew, or at least had a very strong hint, that this was going to happen very shortly, if not immediately after the midterm elections, as a result of the fact that Senator Lindsey Graham, who's likely to be slated to become the next Judiciary Committee chairman in the Senate, essentially green-lighted, this result, and so that's what's happened.
Yeah, during the Kavanaugh, hearing. But in terms of the Robert Mueller investigation, now Matthew Whitaker, the Chief of Staff of Sessions, is overseeing that. What do you expect? I mean, do you expect Mueller to be done soon or not?
Well, the problem may resolve itself. I mean, there's a lot of commentary going on right now about trying to protect the Mueller investigation. I mean, things may happen of its own accord if Mueller completes his investigation with a report, let's say, before the end of the year. That may happen. I don't know. There are a couple of impediments to that, though. One is Michael Horowitz, who's the Inspector General, still has a report outstanding that is due at some point, with regard to the origins of the Russia investigation. That's one thing. Second is
that's supposed to be out by year end.
Right.
Michael Horowitz.
And then the second thing, so that's an impediment to sort of conclusion of things. And the second thing is there is word and reporting that there's something going on in the D.C. Circuit between the appellate court and the district court relative possibly to the question of subpoena to the president or the president's testimony, and that obviously has to resolve itself. I believe there's oral argument with regard to a sealed matter sometime scheduled this month, next month. You'd imagine that would have to be resolved, too, and Mueller would get whatever he's going to get from the president.
Yeah.
And then once that's accomplished, this can conclude. But to answer your question, I do not think that it would be appropriate for Matt Whitaker to be making any decisions about trying to terminate or circumscribe the investigation. He's an acting AG. He's not been Senate confirmed.
Right.
We don't know who the new Attorney General is going to be.
He doesn't really have the authority.
Well, he has the authority.
Legitimacy.
I think we have to be careful about the terms here. He does have the authority. He's the acting AG, and he presides over the Deputy Attorney General, who is a Senate-confirmed individual, and that's Rod Rosenstein, who had the responsibility for the investigation as a result of the recusal of Jeff Sessions.
And Rod Rosenstein was supposed to do a public interview with Congress by year end, too. So that's
so there's
also
another, lots of things in the mix. But I think to get back to the point, I do not think that there's going to be any precipitous action in the sort of holding period that is the period of time between now and when a new AG is named by the president and that person is confirmed presumably in January.
You think it will be that soon? Because I think by
the new
law
Senate
he can stay for, I think, 200 days. Is that, I think,
sure. But I think it's in the country's interest. I think the president will find it in the country's interest, and I think the Senate will find it in the country's interest to not labor long over this. And that it would be appropriate, if possible, to have a new Attorney General confirmed in January.
But Dagan, I mean, the Democrats are already talking about the fact that they don't like this. The Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer weighed in on the timing of the development yesterday.
I find the timing very suspect, number one. But number two, our paramount view is that any Attorney General, whether this one or another one, should not be able to interfere with the Mueller investigation in any way. They should not be able to end it. They should not be able to limit it. They should not be able to interfere with Mueller going forward and doing what he thinks is the right thing. And that will help guide us as we go through this process.
Your reaction?
I suggest that Senator Schumer actually watch this program. One of his constituents hosts it, and you've been talking about this for months and months and months and months. Right. So the timing of this was telegraphed and forecast by Maria Bartiromo. So maybe he wants to maybe not watch, MSNBC 24/7, number one. Number two, there's an element of the Democrats trying to goad the president into doing something rash. I think that seems to be the tone, because they immediately go, Jeff Sessions has been fired. By the way, Jerry Nadler is going to be the head of the House Judiciary Committee. Call for Sessions to step down last year.
Good point.
In fact. So it seems quite suspect, and they immediately go to Sessions resigns to this is the Saturday night massacre.
Right.
Trying to equate it.
But to be fair, the worry is not that everybody knew Sessions was going to go. That was
right.
The president made that absolutely clear. The question, I think the concern, the legitimate concern that people have is that he's been replaced, at least on a pro tem basis, by someone who has been a vocal critic of the Mueller investigation.
But isn't it
and
also...
that person, in replacing him, is taking charge of the Mueller investigation.
Isn't it also a legitimate concern, though, Jerry?
Isn't
it also a legitimate concern, Jerry, that we have been watching the Robert Mueller investigation now for 2 years, and there has been no evidence of collusion, and they're still talking about it?
I think that's exactly right.
How long can this go on?
I think that's exactly right. I mean, just because somebody has been critical of the investigation does not make it disqualifying from presiding as the chief law enforcement officer of the country. That and the fact that the Democrats make the point of, well, wait a minute, it's totally inappropriate for the president to be choosing his prosecutor. Well, hello, that's what the president does. He chooses the attorney general. That's how it works.
Right.
Now, you expect that person to act in the public interest and to be fair, and there are legitimate concerns about, prematurely terminating an investigation. That said, though, Maria, you're absolutely right. This has gone on now for more than 18 months. I have said from the beginning, and you and I have talked about this over all this time, when you get to the point of 18 months plus to 2 years, you either have it or you don't. And it's not going to get any better waiting more months.
What is Robert Mueller up to? What do you have? Now we need to see it. And I think that's part of...
I think we're close to put up or shut up time.
Putting an AG in place that actually says, okay, agenda item number 1. What have you got? Where are we on this?